Okay, so let's dive right in. There's this one question that's just been everywhere lately. Did Gunna snitch?
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting is how the answer totally changes depending on who you ask.
Exactly. Are you looking at it strictly legally, or are you thinking about, the street code, that unwritten rule book?
Two completely different worlds, really.
So today, that's what we're doing, a deep dive into this whole complex situation with Gunna. You've got the YSL RICO case, this whole idea of a street code, and then just these persistent rat rumors that have really clung to him.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And for this, we've really dug into a couple of things. There's this pretty detailed essay, almost like a college paper, called Gunna, Street Code, RICO, and Rat Rumors.
Okay.
Really thorough.
Okay.
And we've also looked at, the public stuff,
hmm
specific people calling him out, actual confrontations, just trying to piece it all together.
Right. So the goal here isn't just to rehash headlines. We want to get into the weeds a bit, understand the legal stuff, the cultural rules, and how they just crash into each other in this case.
It really is a perfect storm of law, loyalty, perception.
Yeah.
And one really critical statement he made.
Okay, let's get into it then. Where do we start? The legal side.
Yeah, I think we have to start there. Back in May 2022, this massive indictment drops in Fulton County, Georgia.
The IRACO indictment.
Exactly, 56 counts. And it names Gunna Sergio Kitchens, is his real name, Young Thug, and a bunch of others associated with YSL.
And RACO, just for anyone maybe not familiar, that's a Racketeer-Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act. It's usually aimed at taking down organized crime, right?
That's the one. They really threw the book at them. It was a major move by the DA's office.
So how did the prosecution actually frame YSL? Because it wasn't just about music, was it?
Oh, definitely not. Their whole argument was that YSL, which, stands for Young Slime Life and Young Stoner Life, wasn't just a record label.
Okay.
They argued it was actually a criminal street gang
hmm
affiliated with the National Bloods gang.
And they linked them to some pretty serious crimes.
Extremely serious. The indictment mentioned things like murder, armed robbery, aggravated assault, drug dealing, extortion, the whole 9 yards, really. They were painting YSL as a dangerous criminal organization.
And what kind of evidence were they using to back that up? Because a lot of it seemed to come from their music and online presence.
Yeah, that was a big part of it. They called these overt acts in furtherance of the conspiracy.
Overt acts, okay.
So yeah, they pointed to rap lyrics, stuff in music videos, social media posts, even just imagery associated with YSL. The argument was, this isn't just artistic expression, it's proof they're operating as a gang.
That's always a controversial area, using lyrics as evidence.
Always. But in a RICO case, the prosecution needs to show a pattern of activity, and they argued these acts taken together showed that pattern.
Okay, so that sets the stage. Then comes the moment that really changed everything, legally and culturally. December 14th, 2022. Gunna takes a plea deal.
Right. He entered what's called an Alford plea.
Explain that a little. Because it's not a standard guilty plea.
No, it's quite specific. With an Alford plea, the defendant doesn't actually admit guilt to the crime itself. But they do acknowledge that the prosecution has enough evidence that a judge or jury would likely find them guilty if it went to trial.
So it's like saying, I didn't do it, but I see you could probably convict me, so I'll take the deal.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
You maintain your personal innocence on the record, but accept the conviction and the sentence that comes with the plea. It's a way to resolve the case without that formal admission of guilt.
And this is the absolute key part, right? As part of that plea agreement, Gunna did make one crucial admission in court.
He did, and this is the line that echoed everywhere. He formally admitted on the record that YSL was a criminal street gang involved in criminal activity.
Wow. So even with the Alford plea maintaining his innocence on the charge, he confirmed the prosecution's core claim about the nature of YSL.
Exactly, and that statement, that's where the legal system and the street code violently collided.
Okay, let's unpack that collision. Why was that specific admission, YSL is a gang, such a huge deal from a street code perspective?
Because, in that world, there's this deeply ingrained, unspoken rule. You never validate law enforcement's narrative, ever.
Even if you aren't naming names, even if you aren't testifying directly against someone else.
Doesn't matter. Confirming their label for the group criminal gang is seen as giving them ammunition. It's seen as helping the cops, helping the prosecutors build their case against everyone else involved.
So it wasn't about who he pointed fingers at, but the fact that he confirmed what the prosecution claimed YSL was.
Precisely. It breaks that code of silence, that omerta. even without direct testimony. You just don't legitimize the charges.
And what was the immediate impact of that, say, on young Thug's defense strategy? Thug's whole angle was that YSL is just a label, right?
Absolutely. Thug's defense was built around YSL being a legitimate music collective, Young Stoner Life Records. Gunna's admission, even in his own separate plea, directly undermined that.
How so? If it wasn't used directly against Thug.
Because it bolstered the prosecution's overall narrative. They could now point and say, look, even one of their own members, under oath, admitted YSL is a criminal gang. It lends credibility to their central charge, making it harder for Thug to argue otherwise.
Okay, I see. It sort of poisoned the well for the defense, even without being direct evidence in Thug's specific trial.
Exactly. It gave the prosecution a massive talking point and reinforced their entire framework for the case against everyone.
And you saw the reaction online almost immediately. You mentioned the essay pointed to Reddit forums.
Yeah, places like Reddit lit up. People were saying things like, saying it's a gang is saying it's organized crime. He just helped the ROCO case.
Right.
And another quote was something like, he snitched, as did the others, by claiming in court that YSL is a gang. The perception was immediate, confirming the gang status was snitching in their eyes.
So let's connect those dots. Legally, his plea had specific limitations. Culturally, it crossed a major line. How did this play out in terms of practical impact?
Well, legally, as we said, the Alford plea means he maintained innocence, didn't testify against co-defendants. His statements in his own plea hearing generally aren't admissible against others unless he takes the stand.
Which he didn't.
Which he absolutely did not. So, from a strict legal definition of providing testimony to convict others, no, he didn't snitch. But culturally and practically for the prosecution's narrative, his confirmation that YSL was a gang was huge. It gave significant weight to the core II charge that this was a criminal organization.
So prosecutors could use that admission strategically, even if not as direct evidence against Thug.
You bet. They could leverage it to argue for applying gang-related sentencing enhancements, potentially leading to much longer prison terms for anyone convicted. It strengthened their hand considerably.
It's such a clash of systems. Satisfying the legal requirement of the plea put him directly at odds with the cultural code.
Completely. And then, almost like pouring gasoline on the fire, there was this other incident, right? This video clip that went viral.
Ah, the supposed Crime Stoppers clip. Tell me about that.
Yeah, shortly after Gunna was released, this short interview clip surfaced. And, the internet being the internet, people immediately jumped on it, calling it a Crime Stoppers segment.
Which implies he's cooperating with police, giving information.
Exactly. It fueled the snitching rumors like crazy, totally separate from the actual plea deal details we just discussed.
Did Gunna ever address that specific clip?
He did, yeah, on The Breakfast Club. Actually back in September 2022. So this was even before his plea deal happened.
Okay, so the timeline is important there.
Very. He flat out denied it. He said, I never stopped a crime. That wasn't no Crime Stopper. He explained it was related to a personal family situation, nothing to do with police cooperation on crimes.
But the perception kind of stuck anyway.
It seems like it did for many. And that really highlights the core issue, doesn't it? In street culture, sometimes just the appearance of talking to authorities, even if it's totally misunderstood or taken out of context,
can be enough to get you labeled, especially when it gets tangled up with something like that courtroom admission later on. The narrative just snowballed.
Perception versus reality. Once that label gets thrown around, it's hard to shake, regardless of the facts.
It really is. Which brings us back to that central paradox.
Did he snitch?
Legally, no. Alford plea, maintain innocence, no testimony against others. Pretty clear cut from that perspective.
But culturally...
For a lot of people, absolutely, yes. That admission, YSL is a gang, that was the betrayal. That was crossing the line. It didn't matter that he didn't name names. He validated the prosecution's core claim.
So it's like he navigated one system, the legal one, but completely violated the rules of another, the cultural one.
That's a perfect way to put it. And the cultural verdict was loud and clear, wasn't it? It wasn't just online chatter.
No, definitely not. Let's talk about who actually publicly called him out. Boosie Badazz was one of the first and loudest. Right?
Oh, yeah. Boosie went straight to Twitter, like right after the plea in December 2022. He used the rat emoji, called him a rat outright. Wow.
Said he took the easy way out, that it cost him his legacy. He even said something like, "He ain't get no more features from me." Boosie's voice carries a lot of weight in that sphere, so that was huge.
A major condemnation from a respected figure in that culture. Then there was Future. His felt a bit more subtle, maybe, in a song lyric.
Yeah, in April 2025, Future dropped a track, Money on Money. And there's this line, "Tellin' for nothing."
Tellin' for nothing.
And pretty much everyone immediately interpreted that as a shot at Gunna. Given their past collaborations and future silence or distance after Gunna's release, that lyric landed like a direct hit for many listeners.
So even without naming names, the context made it clear who people thought he meant.
Absolutely. And then, maybe the most significant, Young Thug himself seemed to weigh in.
From jail, how did that happen?
A snippet of a new song, Thug, apparently recorded surfaced online in January 2025. And the key lyric was, never associate with a rat.
Oof. And people assume that was aimed at Gunna.
Overwhelmingly, yes. Given Thug is the leader of YSL and their close bond before the case, hearing that line, even in a snippet, felt like a direct message from the top. It really solidified the narrative for a lot of fans.
Were there others? I feel like I heard about a producer too.
Yeah, there were rumors involving Wheezy, a major producer who worked with both of them. Some alleged DMs leaked, where Wheezy supposedly called Gunna a rat.
But that was just rumored, unconfirmed.
Right, never officially confirmed. But, like the Crime Stoppers clip, it added to the noise. It became another piece of evidence for those who believe the snitching narrative.
And it wasn't just artists or industry people. There were actual face-to-face confrontations with fans.
Yeah, really public ones. At the 2024 BT Awards, someone, apparently a TikToker, ran up to him on the red carpet and just yelled, "Rat!" at him.
That's intense on a red carpet.
Super intense. And there was another incident in August 2023 where he was just walking with his team and a fan shouted the same thing, "Rat!" Security had to step in quickly.
Wow. So this went way beyond social media comments. It spilled into the real world in a very direct way.
Definitely. So you had Boozy's tweets, Future's lyrics, Thug's snippet, the Wheezy rumors, and then these direct public callouts from everyday people. It was coming from all sides.
Man. It just paints such a picture of these two conflicting worlds, the legal strategy versus this unwavering street code.
It really does. And Gunna's situation just perfectly illustrates that clash. The legal system has its rules, its procedures, plea deals, but the street has its own code. And it's often completely inflexible when it comes to loyalty and silence.
His plea deal might have satisfied the legal requirements, got him out of jail.
But that single admission about the gang status, it triggered a massive backlash within the culture he came from. A backlash based on unwritten rules that, for many, are more binding than any law.
So thinking about this for you, the listener, what's the takeaway here? It really shows how a single piece of information, like that admission, can be viewed in radically different ways.
Right. Exactly. Through a legal lens, it's one thing, part of a plea negotiation. Through a cultural lens, it's perceived as a fundamental betrayal. It really highlights the power of perspective, the power of perception.
And the weight of those cultural expectations. It's like navigating a minefield.
Absolutely. He was caught between these two incredibly powerful systems, each with its own definition of right and wrong, loyalty and betrayal.
Which leaves us with a really interesting final thought to chew on, doesn't it?
Yeah.
In this age of social media, viral moments, instant judgments, what does innocence even mean when a cultural court renders such a definitive and often lasting verdict?
And how do these unwritten codes, these street rules, continue to dictate outcomes and reputations, even long after the judges and lawyers have packed up and gone home?
Something to think about.